Hello, welcome to CGTN. This is our special coverage on the second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. I'm Pandeng in Beijing.
And I'm Beatrice Marshall.
Leaders, including 37 heads of state and government, are gathering for Saturday's Roundtable Summit. Chinese President Xi Jinping will chair the event and deliver a keynote speech. A joint communique will be released after that.
Well, today marks the last day of the three-day forum, which is the top-level platform for coordination under the Belt and Road Initiative. The theme is Shaping a Brighter Shared Future.
And for more insight into that, we're joined in the studio by Professor Wang Yiwei from Renmin University of China and Mr. Harvey Zoding from the Center for China and Globalization, one of the leading Chinese think tanks.
So, who are all coming to the Roundtable Summit? Here's a quick look. Now, countries that have sent their heads of state or government include new BRI participants like Italy and China's longtime partners such as Kenya. Also among the attendees are the United Nations Secretary General and the IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde, as well as senior representatives from the European Union and other countries. And joining us now is my colleague Jonathan Betts. He's at Yangtze Lake. The Roundtable Summit of World Leaders will soon begin there. Jonathan.
Hi, good morning, Beatrice. Yeah, things are underway here just north of Beijing. Chinese President Xi Jinping will deliver a speech this morning at the gathering. Now, we have a team of reporters here that are covering this big day. We're going to bring you the latest with that. Now, we want to give you a little background here because today's event will take place at the International Convention and Exhibition Center here at Yangtze Lake. This is an area that's really beautiful. It's known for its scenery and its traditional architecture. So our reporter Zhou Yun tells us why it's a perfect venue for this forum.
I'm now at the South Square of the Yangtze Lake International Convention Center, and this is where President Xi Jinping welcomed heads of state as well as representatives from international organizations. Upon their arrival, President Xi extended his warmest welcome to those leaders from afar, shaking hands and taking photos. And the square is also known as Hanque Square. Well, this name may sound a little bit unfamiliar to you, but actually Que is this kind of Chinese ancient stone-carved pillar gates, which is what you're seeing right now with my cameraman gradually zooming in. And also traditionally what connects a pier of Que, where those pillar gates, are what we call now the road. And I guess part of the reason for the welcome session to be held in here is that China wants to deliver a positive message. The country is committed to further enhance its connectivity and also open its door wider and wider. And at the same time, I feel also, we're overwhelmed or amazed by this exact location, because this is where you can not only embrace the traditional values and heritage like the Que you just saw, but also embrace about the future like this new initiative of the Belt and Road Initiative. Oh, moreover, I remember that over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Silk Road opened us a new window for friendly changes among various countries, stretching for thousands of miles and lasting for thousands of years. The ancient Silk Road has accumulated this kind of spirit of openness, inclusiveness, as well as peaceful cooperation. And today, over 2,000 years later, the world leaders gather here to carry forward the spirit of the Silk Road and discuss the construction of this initiative. And I think it is not only a continuity of the historical trend, but also depicts a brand new chapter for the development and progress of human beings.
All right, so that's a look at the venue. The stage here is certainly set, but with more on what the global leaders are actually going to be talking about, let's go to our reporter Wei Huya, who has a preview of the roundtable.
I'm at the Yangtze Lake International Convention Center, and specifically this is the Jixian Hall, which in Chinese means a gathering of brilliant minds. And behind me is the round table with 37 heads of state, 2 international organization leaders, and Chinese President Xi Jinping will convene in less than half an hour. Earlier, I had a walk around the table. As you can see, there are 40 seats this time, 7 more than the inaugural event. So leaders will have a tighter space, but also shows more countries have gotten on board. Chinese President Xi Jinping will be seated in the middle, chairing the summit. On his right-hand side will be seated by Russian President Vladimir Putin, and left-hand side, Kazakhstan's first president, Nursultan Nazarbayev. We know the Belt and Road Initiative is a complex project with some countries hopeful over it and others doubtful. So a roundtable discussion is really a good format in terms of hearing every representative's voice. Now, with regard to the specific topics on the table, there are three things to watch for. First, the discussion will likely focus on what President Xi highlighted in his keynote speech yesterday. For instance, green investment, how to bring about more clean projects that not only are environmental friendly, but also transparent, and innovation. Developed nations can help other countries build advanced information and communication networks. The second thing is standards. We know that the Belt and Road Initiative has already coordinated with other development strategies, such as EU's Juncker Plan, Kazakhstan's Bright Road Initiative. But going forward, experts say it's important for Chinese standards to coordinate with those from other countries, and hopefully that will lead to new international standards being set forth. And last but not the least, as Chinese President Xi said yesterday, the Belt and Road is not an exclusive club, and this means more and more countries are welcome to join in. And the latest example, Italy was the first G7 country to sign on. And will this impact the choice of other European countries like Cyprus and Switzerland, who both leaders are present at this year's summit? It'll be interesting to watch. So expectations are very high on this roundtable summit, which is about to take place. And later in the day, a joint communique will be issued to show the political consensus reached in building this Belt and Road Initiative.
Indeed, all eyes focusing here on Yangtze Lake. So let's talk about it with our guest here in our studio, Han Hua, president of the Beijing Belt and Road Cooperative Community. It's great to have you with us today. So it's a big day today. This roundtable summit is attracting more leaders than the last one 2 years ago, 37 compared to 29. So first off, what do you make of that?
It's not just about the numbers, 37 this time versus 29 last time. It's more about the quality and the substantial cooperation these leaders bring in and they will take back. For example, we mentioned that Putin is here. Putin is very dedicated to bring the Euro-Asia plan to connect with the BRI plan. So this is one highlight that will be emphasized during this summit, during the roundtable especially. And also the head of the Switzerland, he is here too. He is not only to have the FTA with China several years ago, but also going to sign the MOU with China on BRI, so that two countries have more substantial cooperation on the third markets, which is very important for both countries when China and Switzerland can have mutually beneficial and mutually supplemental relationship and cooperation on the third markets. Italy, we mentioned Italy.
Yeah,
Italy is one of the Group 7 countries, and Italy is also very proud of their high quality products, which China is the largest, one of the largest world markets. So Italy cannot neglect this market, and they definitely want to more special cooperation with China. Chile, last time it was the last previous president, and this time it's the new president. Remember that every one of the 4 fruits imported by China, there is one Chile product.
But
so
when you think of all these countries, you
yes.
mentioned the European, South Americans,
Yes.
what does that tell you that they are coming here?
They are all coming here for BRI because the essence of the BRI is sharing. It's to have a broader platform that either the products or the manufacturing sectors or the financial sectors, services sectors, they can all have the opportunities and a broader opportunities to work together either on the third markets, on China markets, or on domestic markets, which ultimately will bring more job opportunities to each people of their respective countries.
So as this roundtable gets underway any minute now, really, what are your expectations for this summit today?
There are so many expectations because of Xi Jinping's yesterday's speech. So we see the many key messages they want to highlight here in today's summit, the roundtable. One is the Green Belt and Road. This is a upgrade from last time's summit. It's only 2 years from now, but we can see there are more up about almost 300 projects reached from last time, and over 90% have been implemented, have been well done on the way. So we are expecting more projects to be signed during this summit, especially after the roundtable.
Okay, a lot to look forward to, a lot to discuss later. Han Hua with the Beijing Belt and Road Cooperative Community. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it. Well, as we mentioned, President Xi will soon deliver a speech at this roundtable summit. We're going to have in-depth analysis of his key points, his messages throughout the day, including a big wrap-up on Global Watch. So stay tuned for that. But for now, back to you guys in the studio, Pandong and Beatrice.
Thank you very much, my colleague Jonathan Batts at Yangtze Lake, where the Roundtable Summit of World Leaders will soon begin. You're watching a special live coverage on CGTN. Stay with us.
two paths, one end. A new model of international cooperation, reflecting on past progress, looking to the opportunities and challenges ahead. The second Belt and Road Forum. Stay tuned to CGTN.
President Xi Jinping delivered a keynote speech at the opening Friday. He reiterated the Belt and Road Initiative is an opportunity for common development and announced more ways that China will continue to open its market. CGTN's Kui Huiyao has the details.
Shaping a brighter shared future. President Xi said over the past 5 years, the Belt and Road Initiative has made concrete progress on major projects, pushed the plans from blueprints into realities, and provided new opportunities and territories for both Chinese and world development.
From
Eurasian continent to Africa, the Americas, and Oceania, Belt and Road cooperation has opened up for global economic growth, produced new platforms for international trade and investment, and offered new ways for improving global economic governance. It helps improve people's livelihood of countries involved and has become an opportunity for common prosperity.
She said in the future, pushing for high-quality development of the initiative is essential, and he stressed the importance of green development and innovation in BRI projects.
China will continue to carry out Belt and Road Science, Technology, and Innovation Action Plan, and will work with our partners to pursue for major initiatives, namely the Science and Technology, People-to-People Exchange Initiative, the Joint Laboratory and the Science Park Initiative, and Technology Transfer Initiative.
President Xi also announced a number of new measures that will further open up China's market. These included allowing foreign capital into more sectors, better protecting intellectual property rights, and increasing imports of goods and services.
We will further lower tariffs and remove various non-tariff barriers. We will steadily open up the Chinese market and acquire high-quality products from all over the world.
As one of the most important diplomatic events hosted by China this year, the second Belt and Road Forum aims to bring about high-quality cooperation under the Belt and Road framework. These discussions are important as going forward, it is up to all participants to build a community of shared future and bring tangible benefits to local people. Cao Huiyao, CGTN, Beijing.
As we just mentioned in that report, Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed 5 steps in his keynote speech on Friday on how to further open up the country. Now let's take a closer look at them. He said China will strictly implement a new foreign investment law to make it easier for capital to enter the Chinese market. He called for strengthened protection for intellectual property rights and technological transfers. Xi Jinping also vowed to eliminate non-tariff barriers to increase imports of foreign goods and services, noting that China has the world's fastest growing middle class of consumers. On finance and monetary issues, Xi Jinping said China will not manipulate the RMB exchange rate to get ahead of the competition. He said China wants to take part in reforming the World Trade Organization. The leader also said China will put into practice business agreements signed with other countries. Now, for more insights into all those momentum, we're joined in the studio by Professor Wang Yuwei and Mr. Harvey Zoding. Let me start with you, Professor. Earlier, we were talking about Chinese President Xi Jinping's keynote speech at the opening ceremony on Friday, and you told me that it can be seen as 3 major parts. First, achievements of the BRI so far, what the BRI will do next, and more importantly, maybe, China's own measures to further reform and opening up. Tell us the logic here.
First, it's the Chinese domestic logic. When the Chinese economy grows from high speed and to the high quality oriented, I think we should pay more attention to the property rights protections. Chinese economy from the factor driven to the innovation driven. So this is good for China. At the same time, of course, international views of China also change. It's not just as a developing country anymore. Some countries even views of China as a superpower. So you cannot protect so much of your domestic market. Even the traditional way of doing, like the Chinese opened the market, they signed the deal and they transferred the technology to China from the West. Now the thing about this is enforced transfer of technology. Actually, this is according to the deal made because of the Chinese economy, technology catch up with the West. So we should do in a more so-called reciprocity way. So how the world views of the Chinese domestic international environment, the views of the BRI. With more and more Western countries join the BRI, and then the high quality, that's the key word of the second BRI forum. So I think the Chinese open reform reached the high level, and the BRI as well.
Harvey, so the Chinese opening up is further opening up the market to more quality goods. That is what President Xi Jinping said yesterday. And he also promised to be more involved in global economic governance as well as in consultation. Why is China willing to take a bigger role in the growth of the global economy?
Well, Beatrice, the short and the flip answer is because they can. But the more complicated and more detailed answer is that there's a vacuum in the world now that's been created by the United States, and President Xi has been talking about filling that vacuum since January 2017 in Davos and in Geneva, and the Belt and Road Initiative is probably the personification of that. So China is willing to fill the vacuum. He wants to promote not only the participation of China and the leadership of China, but to enhance globalization in an era of nationalism. So we're an interconnected world. President Xi would like to help connect the world, and as part of that, I think that he would like to revitalize the international organizations. And that brings up the topic, actually, of the fact that a lot of those organizations were created after World War II without China, India, and other important countries at the table. So in the 21st century, a different century with a different dynamic, it's time to look at how those organizations are governed, what their charge is, how they're funded, and so on. And I think this is another part of that equation.
Allow me to follow up on that. I think it's more than China's own will. Do you think the BRI and some of China's own proposals also reflect a common urge in the international community? Because, you know, the sustainable development of the world simply cannot be based on unilateralism and protectionism.
I think that's right. I think that for many decades, the United States provided some significant leadership on this issue. But there's a vacuum now. President Trump is not a believer in that. He's a believer in divisiveness. He's a believer in, at best, bilateralism. And so I think the BRI is actually the personification of what China would like to do. And it's not just a bunch of blah, blah, blah. It's actual results, as Hanwha has said, and talked about the number of projects and so on. In the short time of BRI, it's achieved great things. And I often marvel at how President Xi and his advisors in 2013 could have anticipated how much the world was going to change when he proposed the Belt and Road Initiative. And now we're bearing the fruits of that. And I'd say at some point, United States has to come on board, or the BRI train is going to leave them.
And I want to come to you, Professor Wang, though, because Harvey has talked about multilateralism here, and I do want to get on with that statement in terms of protecting multilateralism and in terms of China having a bigger role in the global economy. What kind of contributions do you see China wishing to make, or that China can make?
Well, China's contribution is not because of the vacuums China want to fill because of the U.S. American First policy. I think China, we contribute according to our own responsibility and expectation from other international communities. The Chinese always claim we are the biggest developing country, so our rights, our power in the permanent member of the United Nations Security Council represents the collective interests of the developing countries, and not just Chinese per se. So I think that's very important. So it's not zero-sum game because the U.S. is going down and then China take place or replace. So it's not that kind of logic. Secondly, I think the Chinese contribution in three major forward. First, I think it's a mentality. the golden principle, so-called, is I translate it, the build of all, build by all, and build for all. I think that's very important. I think we consult together, not just as a center and others join you. Secondly, we should share the burden, share the risks, and do together, and benefit to all the people, not just the bilateral and multilateral mentality. Second, I think China's contribution is have some new innovations like AIIB, which is very important. Infrastructure buildings, the gap is so huge, and I think more and more like BRICS Plus, and in China also contribute in the G20 some structural reform, and I think so. Of course, China provides money and to invest.
Now, since we've talked about the big picture, Beatrice, I think it's time to talk about specifics in implementation, right?
Yes, specifics in implementation. And the Belt and Road Initiative is not just about building high-quality infrastructure. In the same speech, President Xi emphasized the need for its projects to be sustainable, risk-resistant, reasonably priced and inclusive, characteristics which have captured the attention of Africa's leaders. My colleague Liu Xin sat down with the president of Mozambique, Felipe Nyusi, who explained why the massive project has really started to turn heads in recent months.
So the speech was indeed very rich and very deep, very profound. It has made an analysis, a historical analysis. It connects the past with the present and with the future. And this has been indeed a very clarifying speech, which with a lot of insights, because initially people had so many interpretations on the Belt and Road Initiative, but now it has become clear. Some thought it was just a way of globalization and expansionism of China, and others thought it was a new way of colonialism. Others even thought that China was going to take hold of resources from African countries. But it has become quite clear that this is a way of modernizing multilateralism, and indeed this is on a relationship based on trust, confidence, and this is going to reduce imbalances in terms of development. It's going to bring more friendly globalization, so to say, and this indeed it's something that will help. It's not only on infrastructure, sports, culture, technology and education, and on so many other things. And indeed, by implementing the Belt and Road Initiative, we will also bring peace to the world, because as we work together, we will build trust and we will see progress in what we are doing, and this will bring confidence, will bring peace, as people know that they are the beneficiaries of the welfare of what this is doing. And I believe you could see from the speeches that followed, the remarks that followed by other heads of states or government, they were quite aligned on the same wavelength in terms of the importance of this initiative and the results, the impact for the lives of the people from the participating countries.
Six years on, what is the state of the Belt and Road? And how is the progress?
Where are the challenges? Who is building, connecting, and benefiting?
Our global correspondents bring you personal insights, live business reports,
interviews with the major players, investigation and analysis.
For comprehensive coverage of the Belt and Road Forum, stay tuned to CGTN.
Well, on the sidelines of the Belt and Road Forum, China's Finance Ministry has issued a document on debt sustainability of the project. The move aims to promote maintainable economic and social development of Belt and Road countries. The ministry said China recognized the importance of striking a balance between meeting financing demands, sustainable development and debt sustainability. The ministry has put out a debt sustainability framework based on standards from the IMF and World Bank, also taking into account the local context of the country involved. This framework is a non-mandatory policy tool. The financial institutions of China and other countries are encouraged to use it to conduct debt sustainability analysis to better manage risks.
Now, while China talks about financial integration, many worry about a so-called debt trap. Some ask, are BRI mega projects too much for an overburden for some countries? Let's take a look at the numbers.
More than 5 years into the Belt and Road Initiative, global enthusiasm for the programme runs high, but some have raised concerns.
Is BRI creating a debt trap?
So what's Beijing's response?
China would neither force others to cooperate on projects nor create any traps.
Effective financing and investments in valuable assets have been created for relevant countries.
No country has fallen into a debt crisis because of cooperation with China.
The BRI's financing guidelines state that all investment projects should follow transparent, non-discriminatory and mutual beneficial rules. Those guidelines were approved by the finance ministers of 17 partner countries and authorized by 26 countries in May 2017.
Now let's cross live to the venue of Saturday morning's Roundtable Summit of Heads of State and Government in Beijing's northern suburbs, Yanxi Lake to be precise. You're watching live footage from the conference hall of the Roundtable Summit. 37 heads of state and government are attending, along with heads of international organizations.
Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, heads of international organizations, I now declare that the Leaders Roundtable of the Second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation opens. Back in May 2017, many of us around the table attended the Leaders Roundtable in the same venue. Together, we issued a joint communique, identified the objectives, principles, and measures for Belt and Road cooperation, and achieved concrete deliverables covering many areas. In the past 2 years, under the principle of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits, we have made all-round progress in policy, infrastructure, trade, financial, and people-to-people connectivity, lending new impetus to global growth and opening new space for global development. Today we are gathered here for the second Belt and Road Forum. We wish to work with all parties to advance results-oriented implementation of projects, just like an architect refining the blueprint, and promote more solid progress in our cooperation to deliver greater benefits to our people. First, we hope to work with all parties to further substantiate the guiding principles for high-quality development of Belt and Road cooperation. We must implement the principle of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits to see that all have their voices heard, all reach their full potential, and all stand to benefit. The BRI must be open, green, and clean, and follows a high-standard, people-centered, and sustainable approach. We should make our support for the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as integral part of Belt and Road cooperation. Align our cooperation with universally accepted rules, standards, and best practices, and pursue economic growth, social progress, and environmental protection in a balanced way. The BRI should be beneficial to all and deliver common development. Second, we hope to work with all parties to identify cooperation priorities and strengthen all-round connectivity. We need to continue to focus on infrastructure connectivity and deepen cooperation in frontier areas such as smart manufacturing and digital economy to achieve innovation-driven development. We must open our markets wider and enhance trade and investment facilitation for unimpeded flows of goods. We need to build diversified financing systems and multi-tiered capital markets. We should promote extensive people-to-people exchanges in various forms and undertake more cooperation projects that help improve people's lives. All in all, we need to achieve all-round connectivity that produces multiplying effects in infrastructure development, industrial clustering, economic growth, and people's well-being. Third, we hope to work with all parties to bolster cooperation mechanisms and foster partnerships on connectivity. We need to build an open world economy and reject protectionism. We must make continued efforts to enhance the complementarity and synergy between the Belt and Road cooperation and the development strategies and agenda at national, regional, and international levels through bilateral, tripartite, and multilateral cooperation. We need to encourage the full participation of more countries and companies, thus expanding the pie of common interests. In the spirit of multilateralism, we need to earnestly advance the institution building for Belt and Road cooperation to provide a strong underpinning for our practical cooperation in various fields. I'm confident that with all of us working together, we can build more consensus and achieve more outcomes at today's roundtable, and that our joint efforts to promote Belt and Road cooperation will bring greater benefits to our peoples and contribute more to the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. Dear colleagues, we now start the first session of the Leaders Roundtable. The theme for this session is boosting connectivity to explore new sources of growth. Connectivity is the main focus of the Belt and Road cooperation. During the first Leaders Roundtable of the BRF, leaders of participating countries had an exchange of views on this important topic and recognized that connectivity is critical to removing the bottlenecks constrain development, in driving the development of relevant industries, and in providing stronger impetus for development. For the past 2 years, building on the consensus reached at the first BRF, China has been working actively with various parties on connectivity cooperation, which has seen good progress. A large number of roads, railways, ports, and other infrastructure development projects are up and running or underway. We have seen multiplying effects in infrastructure development, industrial clustering, economic growth, and people's well-being. While today's world economy is at a challenging moment, with rising uncertainties and destabilizing factors, compounded by a lack of drivers and growing downward pressure. In this context, it is even more to further step up connectivity cooperation. There are a number of questions to be answered, including how to generate greater international attention to connectivity, how to ensure high-quality, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure development projects, and how to coordinate the hardware and software connectivity and achieve all-round connectivity. These are the topics that we need to seriously consider. In December last year, the Advisory Council of the Belt and Road Forum, consisting of many renowned international figures, held the first meeting, and they came up with a policy recommendation report on the Belt and Road cooperation. The report has included many valuable views and recommendations on greater connectivity, policy synergy, and the implementation of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda of the United Nations. The report has provided useful references for our discussion, and the report has been circulated to you through the diplomatic channel. With that, I will invite all of you to take the floor. First of all, I would like to invite Madame Christine Lagarde, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, to talk about international economic situation.
That was Chinese President Xi Jinping's opening remarks at a roundtable summit of the Second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. In those remarks, he mentioned the key focus of this time's roundtable summit is to build result-oriented implementation, and he raised the three proposals to realize that. First is to promote high-quality mutual construction, and the second, clarify priorities, and a third, strengthen partnership mechanisms. He also said that the main focus of Belt and Road is still connectivity. Now, for more insight into that, let's talk to our studio guest. Professor, let me start with you first. Result-oriented implementation. So does that mean that main framework of the Belt and Road Initiative is already there, and it's more about putting that into place and put into a good place, good implementation right now?
Yes, compared to the first summit, I think people more question about the mutual consultation is between China and the BRI countries. But now I think third party and also multilateral consultation, particularly more and more developed countries join, so the level will be lifted, and so the consultation coordination is more difficult, complex, but it is very neat. And also to reach the goals of the United Nations Sustainable Development, and not just the other countries' dream of the strategy, the synergy of the strategies, but also with the regional corporations. For instance, the CEE corporations, they should apply to the European Union, their strategy and the plan. So I think that's very important. And at the same time, President Xi mentioned the full achievements, not just related to the economic, but also social and civilian benefits. I think that's very important for the Belt Road high quality.
Harvey, connectivity was a key theme, remains a key theme throughout the forum. Boosting connectivity to explore new sources of growth. What are your thoughts?
Obviously, connectivity is what the heart of BRI. Because connectivity builds bridges, it also builds economy, it builds higher standards of living for all who become better connected. So connectivity in so many fields, I mean, so far we've concentrated on this kind of physical infrastructure, but beyond that we're moving to technical infrastructure like the e-Belt and Road and things like that, that will take advantage of artificial intelligence, take advantage of all the learning that we've done so far, all the data that we have, and it will really make a huge difference for all the countries that are concerned. And I like to think about how China was in 1988 when I first came here. It was very hard or impossible for people to get a telephone then. But China leapfrogged over several generations of technology onto mobile. And now we see how many hundreds of millions of people are connected on the internet and on telephone by mobile. So this is what interconnectivity and platform is all about. So I think we have a very bright future in front of us.
And having said that, Professor Wang, what do you make of Chinese President Xi Jinping's notion of building a connectivity that involves both hardware and software. I think it goes beyond technology and infrastructure, and also talents nurturing maybe.
Yes, the software infrastructure building is also more and more important in the BRI, because of the different different systems. Some countries we sign FTA, but not everybody, and also different. Even I visited Mauritius. There are two legal systems. The civilians legal system is French. The criminals legal system is UK. So how to coordinate with two different kinds of the systems? So that I think is very important. And at the same time about high quality, I think mutual connectivity, digitalized, smart grid, smart cities. When I visit Tunisia, Huawei, finance a lot of that. But at the same time, we also should pay attention to when I visit some African countries, still without electricity or not enough. So half of the population in the world maybe cannot access to internet. So leapfrog, that's a very important China experience. We want to share with those countries without enough electricity. But at the same time now have 4G. When I visit Pakistan, they suffered also the shortage of the electricity. But Chinese telecom will help them to build 4G. Of course, first the electricity and then 4G. So compatible with the West, not just step by step. This is very important. Otherwise, those countries still live in the darkness, we're marginalized. So I think bridge the gaps immediately for.
Harvey, as we mentioned, the promotion of e-commerce. So because one of the projects that was signed by the Kenyan delegation while they were here is the construction of a Konza data center and smart cities project. So clearly that e-connectivity is starting to bear fruit. That was just signed here in the last day or so. So how can China and its partners though better build the BRI with digital technologies such as AI and data centers, because that is now starting to happen in developing countries?
Well, the great thing about BRI is that it's a partnership. The President Xi used the word, and it is a partnership. And so we all can bring, all the countries that are involved can bring different things to the table. And because we see things from different perspectives, because our experiences are different. But the fact is, at the moment, that China is a leader in things like AI and other technologies, the 5G technology, and so on. And so China will play a mentoring role at this period. But I think in many places in the world, it's going to turn night into day, technologically and in other ways. And the more that we're connected, I think the better chances for economic growth and the better chances also of having a more peaceful world.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's get more from those remarks. The British multinational bank Standard Chartered has a strong presence in China and many of its BRI partner countries. The bank says the initiative is among its strategic priorities. Its chairman sat down with CGTN and Belt and Road Portal, the initiative's official website, and shared some insight on the achievements of the BRI of the past few years and how the bank has engaged with it.
I think Belt and Road has been very important already in helping build many infrastructures which have improved connectivity across countries. And this connectivity is a necessary condition for enhancements in trade, which will help in turn growth and development. So I think that this is the basic objective. Now, during these 5 first years of the Belt and Road Initiative, there has been an emphasis on the quantity of projects, and also there has been increasingly less, but still important, mode of engagement which has been bilateral between China on the one hand, meaning Chinese government, Chinese contractors, Chinese banks on the one hand, and the recipient project on the recipient country on the other, on the different projects. And I think it's very important that in this second stage we take increasingly into account aspects of quality, not just of quantity of projects, but project quality, and also that in line with what President Xi Jinping mentioned, that we broaden the mode of engagement from more multilateralism to less bilateralism. This is already happening, but we need to move further in this direction.
Now, a group of 35, including ministers, ambassadors and delegates from the energy sector, have formed a cooperative partnership related to energy at the forum. Algeria, Bolivia and Pakistan are among the countries that have signed onto it. As an open platform, the partnership is aimed at pushing forward cooperation of these countries in the energy field, with a conference for energy ministers every 2 years. The partnership will also provide training for ministers and foster more talent for energy cooperation projects. Better energy policy coordination and green technology exchanges among countries are also on the agenda. Here's what Zhang Xianhua, director of China's National Energy Administration, had to say about this new partnership.
This cooperative partnership is for participating countries to jointly solve problems in energy development, safeguard the environment, deal with climate change, secure safe energy, and promote sustainable development.
Digital Silk Road is also a focus of this year's Belt and Road Forum, and there's a sub-forum dedicated to this topic. Senior officials from 8 countries, including Cuba, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, shared about their economy's achievements in digitalization. This increases the need for deeper collaboration with China in areas such as cloud computing, big data, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. Officials said such cooperation is expected to merge the virtual economy with the real economy and make economic growth along the Belt and Road region more inclusive and sustainable. During that event, 22 companies signed 10 technology cooperation agreements with each other.
The utilization of ICT in Laos increase day by day. We try to create and to bring some good application for all sectors.
Nigeria will open up the space, more jobs will be created. Our population is about 70% under the age of 25. So there will be a lot of jobs for the young ones. The digitization process, will surely do. I think growth and development are assured.
Malaysia hopes to double the number of Chinese tourists and grow investment after reinforcing its commitment to the Belt and Road Initiative with a revised deal on the East Coast Rail Link. CGTN's Cheng Lei spoke to Darilei King, Malaysia's Minister of International Trade and Investment, on the sidelines of the forum.
What are you expecting to get out of this year's Belt and Road Forum, given the prediction that there will be a lot more refinements for the initiative, which started almost 6 years ago?
Malaysia wants to continue working with China and ensuring that the Belt and Road is a success. Our Prime Minister has been very consistent on this one. He said he supports, Malaysia supports the Belt and Road initiatives, but we want to ensure that when there are projects done, when there are deliverables done, that it is done fairly and equitably to Malaysia as well as China.
So now that the ECRL deal has been revised, do you think it lifts a lot of the uncertainties around the bilateral relationship, so we can expect a lot more Chinese investments into Malaysia going forward?
I think what came out of the ECRL deal is the a vindication as well to the government of Malaysia that we could negotiate further on an inflated amount that was done by the previous regime. So just as I remember, China was very clear. President Xi said, we understand the situation and we want to help Malaysia. And I think our Prime Minister took upon it to ask Tundaim to make sure that we get a very fair and equitable deal for both countries. Yeah.
China is Malaysia's largest trading partner, bilateral trade over $100 billion last year, and China is also a big investor in Malaysia. What sort of trade and investment growth can we expect for 2019?
The Chinese tourists, the Chinese investors come in, they will surely want to have an exciting experience when they visit Malaysia. So we believe that tourism will grow, we believe that even investments will grow. But we want to ensure that when they invest into Malaysia, they keep on reinvesting into Malaysia. Just imagine, our recent trade delegation to the United States, that itself, through the hard work by MIDA, Martrade, and all the other agencies like InvestKL, we managed to get a commitment of about 6.6 billion Malaysian ringgit. And that's big. And some of them are already invested into Malaysia and found Malaysia to be a hospitable place to do business, and they've increased it ever since. And in my visit to America, one committed quite a substantial amount amongst the 6.6 billion. So you can imagine what the Chinese can do.
So for Chinese investors watching this,
yes,
which areas would Malaysia welcome the most?
Oh, we welcome manufacturing. We do welcome as well the technology that China has, and we mostly welcome as well if they can train Malaysian and employ more Malaysians to help us in our current economy, where we want to ensure that people from the rural part of Malaysia, Sabah, Sarawak, is able to get employment and the training that we need.
The Malaysian Prime Minister is calling for productivity improvements in the economy. He cited 3 priorities: increasing export capacity, improving market efficiency, and also making it easier to do business. What does that mean for your ministry's policies?
We do know that there are some complaints on their working visa. We do know that there are some complaints on bureaucracy. And we want to ensure through our ministry that when investment comes, when people come into Malaysia, our agencies such as MIDA, Martrade, MITI, and all the other agencies connected to bringing trade to Malaysia or selling trade to Malaysia, outside of Malaysia, will be easy and will be straight to the point.
Now we head back to Beijing's Yanqi Lake, where the Roundtable Summit of the Second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation is underway. During his opening remarks to the summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping said China is willing to work with all parties involved in the BRI for high-quality development.
我们要把共商共建
We must implement the principle of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits to see that all have their voices heard, all reach their full potential, and all stand to benefit. The BRI must be open, green, and clean, and follows a high-standard, people-centered, and sustainable approach. We should make our support for the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as integral part of Belt and Road cooperation. Align our cooperation with universally accepted rules, standards, and best practices, and pursue economic growth, social progress, and environmental protection in a balanced way. The BRI should be beneficial to all and deliver common development.
For more on the latest, now let's go live to our reporter Yang Chengxi, who is at the National Judges College near the Roundtable Summit site. Hi Chengxi. Now President Xi has just delivered an address. Give us a brief summary of the highlights.
Hi, so I just finished summarizing the highlights of President Xi's address, but first, a little bit of background for President Xi Jinping's speech this morning. It was a welcoming speech for, as you said, the 2 roundtable sessions between him and 37 heads of states as well as 2 heads of international institutions. They will share extensively their opinions and will reach consensus on Belt and Road issues. Now, these will all be included in this year's joint communique. At the first Belt and Road Forum 2 years ago, the leaders jointly announced 18 goals and principles on connectivity and cooperation. Now we should expect a new version of that later today, which would address new issues for the Belt and Road. Now, in President Xi's speech, he said over the past 2 years, member countries' cooperation in terms of policy, infrastructure, trade, and cultural exchange has yielded obvious results and has widened room for growth for the global economy. He said leaders should discuss today how the initiative can work with, for example, as you heard, the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, as well as other good practices by other countries, their development goals. Now this, I've heard from many participants, has been a major topic this year. China is not, as they said, pushing its own strategy and agenda across across the region, but rather finding synergies between the Belt and Road Initiative and other countries' development goals, and let leaders sit down and discuss how they could work out a best development path together. So that the initiative can become more inclusive and representative among all member countries. Now, he said he champions an open world economy and spoke against protectionism. He said cooperation under the framework of Belt and Road is especially important in today's trade and investment climate around the world. It is to boost growth, he said, leaders should focus on areas such as smart manufacturing, digital economy, especially a digital Silk Road, widening market access, and fostering trade. I've interviewed the communications minister of Laos yesterday. He said, for example, he wants China to share some of the know-how in its massive e-commerce sector. And then the country is making its own e-commerce law, and a lot of experiences can be drawn from China's development in these sectors, in the digital sector, so that to help countries along the Belt and Road to realize a more sustainable and inclusive and fast growth rate. Now, in the afternoon, there will also be a press conference where the President Xi will answer questions from global media. Back to you.
Thank you very much, our reporter Yang Chengxi there. And that's it for this edition of CGTN's special coverage on the Second Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation. I'm Pan Dong in Beijing.
And I'm Beatrice Marshall. Thank you very much for joining us on this special program. It's goodbye for me.
Bye for now.